Welcome back to Osun Decides, the live studio right here in Lagos on Channels Television. Deborah, you were at that point where you were telling us the why this is still being perpetrated.
Yeah, because we know the way elections are conducted here and what political offices mean to government seems to be the only thriving business in Nigeria, and that's why for a governorship election, local government, even the national election, a lot is put into it. Candidates who are due themselves. There are inducements, in negotiations and all what's not, and so that's why for me, when we discuss vote buying, it shouldn't be that exchange at the polling unit, because the law defines it broader, much more than that. And so we should look at it holistically if we truly want to get election right. And then quickly rounding up on this, you find that what senior societies do is they find a way, technology, to eradicate or ameliorate some of these hiccups. We also employed that same technology in 2015 to eradicate multiple thumb printing. But why are we? That's why also I commend INEC when they say don't take your phone into the polling booth, because we saw what happened with the kitty.
But that's for many people have been getting commendations for INEC and saying that it has largely succeeded. As a matter of fact, Uzi was in our Abuja studios where he said that it has worked exceptionally well.
That's why you saw that.
And curbed
yes.
Exchange of evidence for money
because
as a way of vote buying.
From Edo to Ondo to Ekiti, we saw how brazen it was. And this step by INEC had actually curbed it. But we need to take it a step further and go the whole hog.
How further should we go?
It's to tighten it. It's a step in the right direction. But like I said earlier, we should watch out for displacement. He talked about institutionalized inducement that incumbency factor confers on political party, especially when the party that controls the government at the state level also controls the government at the national level. We saw the sudden movement of or release of 16 billion naira to Osun State, and how salaries that have not been paid for months were quickly cleared.
But that cannot be vote buying.
You see, in election,
clearly that cannot be vote buying.
It's not. I said inducement. I didn't say vote buying. There's a why do people?
According to what he has read. According to what he has read,
Section 20.
It is an inducement and it is vote buying.
No, that is actually what the law says is one thing. But if you look at the broader array of tools that incumbency confers on political candidate, law cannot begin to define it completely. And that's why people want to be in that seat and contesting. And that's why they will tell you, oh, if you disagree with the outcome, go to court. But for me, this is just one. The real Achilles heel in the chain of elections in Nigeria is the collation, transmission, and result announcement. Because the chain of electronic voting system had not reached that end. And that is where the wholesale compromise or falsification of election happen, and where we need to pay a little attention, because even the election observers themselves, if you see how election materials are moved, they are moved with security convoy. Election observers have no motorized means of movement.
Are you saying you're expecting the objections to be raised even while we wait for the Osun election results?
No, these are things as somebody who has observed the election since the Moshood Abiola 1993 election.
Do you think that objections will be raised ahead of the announcement of the results of Osun State elections?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying this is a process. We are just through with the first and second, the accreditation and the voting itself, but we are now at a stage where collation, transmission, and announcement are going to be made. That's where observers need to pay more attention. And there's already a challenge in the work of the observers, because they do not have the kind of transportation to keep pace with the movement of these materials, which security officials do. So they have to get to that collation center at their own pace. So these are things to take into consideration. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that anything has happened, but I'm saying we are just dealing with one part of a process, and that the major Achilles heels that have not been addressed with the full transmission to the electronic voting system. If you look at the Electoral Act, we are still at the stage where now it's even the verification that they are trying to bring on board. But the transmission, the electronic transmission of the result has not been addressed by the Electoral Act. And until we cover that loop, we will still continue to have challenges. But there again, I must restate what I said earlier. We commend all the stakeholders so far, INEC, civil society, security agencies, but to say our work has been done or fully done, I don't agree. We still have challenges to deal with along the line.
So inevitably, you're saying that perhaps the successes of security and INEC and the massive turnout in Ekiti State probably won't be the ideal measures to take into the 2019 general elections when we get to that point.
It's a major contribution, but it's not the totality. And there's also institutional inhibitions, even within the Electoral Act that we're using. Civil society groups have been calling for amendment of the Electoral Act for Nigeria to embrace the full complement of electronic voting system in Nigeria. It has not been done. And up till now, we still have amendments that have gone through the National Assembly that have not been signed into law, and we're a few months away to the general election. INEC need to have the resources to procure all the materials they need as we speak. It has not been released to them. So beyond this test case, as people say it, Osun election, which if you look at the deployment so far, we have 300 patrol vehicles, we have 30 armored personnel carriers, we have 10 armored passenger carriers. We have how many?
2 helicopters and so
200 helicopters for one state. So expand that
to helicopters.
Expand that to the 36 states and Abuja. You begin to understand the extent of logistic challenges.
I'm quick to ask this question, Prof. How prepared do you think INEC is to conduct the 2019 elections?
Thank you very much. You said it all. If the funds are not even there, to manage an election is a very, very challenging thing, especially given the complexity of our environment and like what my other colleague equally referred to. The only business in town is politics. And what our politicians try to do is to capture state power, and every other thing will be added to them. So it's like we are every time, like he equally rightly said, I should think we have won a battle. There's another one confronting us. So INEC needs to be well equipped financially, logistically, and like I equally insisted the other time. And he has actually even painted it more graphically. See what was deployed for Osun. If that's part of the reasons why we are talking about this success. But if given the fact that this is not possible when we have the general election, it then raises a lot of concern. So then, more importantly, we on this issue of vote buying, it's very complex. And the issue of incumbency is there. There are some things you cannot have you cannot ask a government in power not to do. So there's always a way the government can commodify election and profit by one policy or the other. So what we need to do, I think, again, is that we need massive political education for our people. Because if you are owing me 34 months, and on the eve of election, you are paying me maybe 5,000 like Fayose did, or you are paying me 4 months.
Fayose is not here to
yeah, they are all the same thing. You are just paying me 4 months of my salary, and you want me to think I'm stupid? We are taking our people for granted. People should be able to know that, come, this guy is not serious. After election, we'll go back to the same old game. So we need political education, political education, and political education. Our people must be seriously politically conscious and know that it should not be a game, the same game, business as usual.
I'm wondering how much impact, because you mentioned the electoral amendment bill, I'm wondering how much impact not signing that bill will have on 2019. We're less than 6 months to it. Is it throwing spanners in the works of INEC? Yes, of course.
Okay, actually, yeah, of course. You see, the whole essence, there are no perfect laws. And the whole essence of making an amendment is that after you have done something, you've noticed some lacuna, you've noticed some loopholes on some defects. The whole essence of the amendment is to say, let's tighten this, let's introduce this, let's make improvement. So if the all the stakeholders have agreed that there are problems this way, like look at the going full flood, full log on the issue of electronic voting. Of course, quite a lot of improvement will be done. So by the time this is not done, that means we are still falling back. There's still the possibility of making the old mistake. It's right there. And that means we'll be like a French fool who have learned nothing and forget nothing. So it's very important that the amendment bill is signed into law so that at least we are moving forward.
Thank goodness we have the lawyer here, Liboris Oshoma. What impact will this have, really? Because if the concerns are this apt and people are really harping on the need for Mr. President to sign the electoral act, and let's have those amendments to have a more credible, free and fair elections in 2019, and at this point that hasn't been effected, how much of that is weighing on the process?
Yeah, a lot, quite a lot. And then also you cannot completely also jettison the concerns raised by Mr. President. One big problem that we have with our electionary and election management here is that immediately after the election, we forget that the end of one election cycle actually begins another election cycle. And so the lapses in the current election should serve as catalyst to actually, find out the problems you have with the electionary process and then take immediate steps to correcting them. But we don't do that. INEC also had been telling us, because one major problem where elections are rigged, one area is from polling unit to collation center. We saw, election commissioners complaining during the Edo election that, at collation centers, some candidates came with thugs and guns and, with documents insisting that those,
those results are now being collated, are being transmitted electronically. That shouldn't be a sort of concern.
No, not yet. INEC promised that to correct that, they were going to transmit